And look at the sleepers.
We're on live. We're live.
Got the best coaches in the game. We really ain't playing. We regroup up in the Slack chat where the coaches debrief. We be piecing these puzzles, occupy the chunk of the pie. Ain't no lie when we hit the block. Helmet's casket is top. You be seeing helmet after helmet, helmet after helmet. First place, second place, fifth place, eighth place, 12th place, 15, 16, 20. So many helmets, you got blurred vision. We got.
All right, what's up, everyone? Welcome back to another Bold Calls season-long fantasy football podcast presented by DFS Army. My name is Kevin Allen. I am your host, and I have with me the NFL draft specialist himself, the GOAT of all things fantasy football, Encyclopedia Fantasy Footballica himself, Season-long Says, a.k.a. Alan Seslowsky. What's up, my man?
What's up, dude? Fantasy football season is we're in the last week of June here, so usually July 4th in a normal year is when fantasy football season kicks off. It's when the casual players start paying attention. So it feels like we've gone through this since we've been doing this all off season. We've gone through the rankings, we've gone through positional stuff, but let's keep in mind that we're going to have new people tuning in, really fine tuning their fantasy football skills. And today, what a great subject today, sleepers to kick off right before 4th of July weekend.
Everybody loves a sleeper. Everyone loves a sleeper. Sleepers are how you win your league. But let's set some ground rules for what a sleeper actually is, because is a sleeper a guy that I could take like in the third round that should be a first rounder? Or are we talking about players that we want to take like after our team is pretty much filled up with starters? So 8th round ADP or further. Let's set some ground rules before we break this down.
Yeah, I think that, for those who have been playing fantasy football for a decade, even 20 years or somewhere in between, you remember there was a time where there was actual real sleepers where you knew about a player and then nobody else really knew about that player until they broke out. But with the advent of Twitter, with news alerts that pop up in your hand the minute any tertiary player catches an over-the-shoulder pass in a training camp, fantasy magazines are gone just because they become outdated too soon. So I think what a sleeper is by my definition, is a player who is certainly is undervalued and that has probably a good chance to finish, say, as a top 10 or 12 or even 15 player in their position, but is probably getting drafted outside of the first 5 rounds. And then, of course, there's the super sleepers for those of us who play in deeper leagues with 3 receivers plus 2 flex. And a lot of the times, those are those third receivers or that third running back that we expect to make an ascension up the depth chart inside of training camp before the season starts.
That's fair. So what we're looking for here are players who have the potential to finish in the top 15 of their position, essentially.
Or in the top 5 if they're outside of the top 15. A lot of times.
Hopefully that's right. Outside of the top 15 that have the possibility of being essentially an RB1, a WR1, a TE1, or something along those lines, like very startable player, but you can get him late in your draft. So the first thing I like to do in these situations is just go position by position and look at a few different sleepers from the various position groups. Now, I was looking over your sleeper list on the DFS Army Draft Kit.
Yeah, so just for those of you who are already DFS Army members, the draft kit is live. And what the draft kit is, it's sets of rankings. There's strategy tips that are going to be loaded in. We loaded in some of our sleepers this week. All our positional rankings are updated. They're very best ball centric right now, but they will be tweaked in August for your redraft leagues. But yeah, right now we are sharing our sleepers. Myself, Flex, Shane. I know you're putting yours up there. And anyone that's a DFS Army member can go check out that draft kit. And even if you're not a member, there's a way to get into the draft kit without becoming a full VIP member.
That's right. But we won't worry about non-members. We like our subscribers. So we take care of you. Yeah, the draft kit is out. You've got all kinds of rankings, dynasty, PPR, redraft, everything you need, all the position groups. And we're filling in sleepers and other things, busts, and those type of things. Everything filling in here. We're hitting July. July 4th is officially for me like the beginning of sort of its fantasy football season.
Oh yeah, and I think that's that's across the industry. I think that's in a traditional year, but now with baseball about to have a season and the NBA doing their little 8-game seeding thing, and there's going to be a little little spread out attention. But I think those hardcore fantasy football players are going to be interested, and even the casual ones as well.
You know what's funny? I haven't even considered that normally there's just nothing going on in August, and it's just July and August, and it's just all fantasy football, especially August. But this year, man, we're about to get a whole bunch of sports back all in a short period of time.
For DFS.
A lot of excitement.
Yeah, for DFS, like NBA is not going to have fantasy because it's an 8-game regular season that's left. And then there's the fantasy. If you're going to do a fantasy playoff league for basketball, that could happen, but you still can't draft or prep for that yet because you don't know who the teams are yet.
No, so, it's also just about watching sports. At this point, usually in July, you're so thirsty for any sports.
Oh, yeah.
That you're just like, fantasy football. But, we're watching preseason games. This year's a little different. But let's start with the running back position. Let's just jump right into it. Running back position group. Sleepers. People who we could take late in the draft, later, that could end up either a top player for the position or hopefully helping you win your league. Now, I actually want to start with a general point on the running back position and on the season as a whole. This is the year of the Rona. Okay? This is the year where, on top of regular injuries, we may start to see players test positive for corona and be out for 3, 4, 5 weeks at a time. Unprecedented. Because it could hit anyone. So I think the easiest way to consider sleepers is just to look at high-level handcuffs for players that we can really count on.
Yeah, and also, with the running back position too, I mean, everyone's going running back crazy this year. This is the year of the running back. It reminds me a lot of 2015 with the wide receivers because and the reason, and I'm going to tie it back to your point, is that last year, the reason people usually fade running backs early is because they get hurt often. And last year, all the big time running backs and even some of the guys in the 3rd round didn't get hurt. It was actually the wide receivers that got more banged up. Devontae Adams missed 7 or 8 games. Tyreek Hill missed a half a dozen games.
Juju Smith-Schuster missed the whole season.
Yeah, I mean, he got railroaded, but he got railroaded by
Brown.
Well,
let's fucking name him, man. Antonio Brown. All these wide receivers were a fucking dud. So everybody's like, screw taking a wide receiver.
Right. So my fear is that it's switched back the other way, and that this could be the year to look at some wide receivers where everyone else is going running back, because who knows, maybe this is the year all the running backs get hurt again, which is more likely than a wide receiver getting hurt. But as we're going to start to talk about our sleepers, I believe there's a couple of starting quality running backs that, again, may not win your league or finish top 5, but are true sleepers in the sense they could really hold down the position if you decide to be contrarian this year and go for some of the elite pass catchers early.
Absolutely. All right, let's start with a running back you have listed on your sleepers list. Says sleepers tab. That's Jordan Howard. Tell me about Jordan Howard and tell me why he's a sleeper. In the time that you're saying that, I will mention that Jordan Howard is going off the board very late. 41st running back off the
9th
board.
round. He's going in. He's stuck in his ADP is stuck in the mud in the 9th round. Like, you're not going to have to fight through. If you really want Jordan Howard, like I'm recommending him, you could just take him in the 8th round, no problem. And the reason I like Jordan Howard is he's only 25 years old. Okay, he landed in the perfect place in free agency with Miami. Now, everyone was positive that Miami was going to use one of their first 3 they had 3 first-round picks, Geek, and everyone was convinced that they were going to use one of those on a premium running back prospect. They did not. The only other running back they added of significance was they used a 5th-round pick, traded it to San Francisco, and got Matt Breida. This is Jordan Howard's backfield. Now, if we just even assign Jordan Howard, we know he doesn't catch the ball, but if we just assign him, his career average has been around 20 catches, okay? So it's something. It's not going to...
You really want to assign him 20 receptions?
I mean, that's what he's averaging over his career. So,
right.
You want to average what? You want to sign him 17, 22?
Yeah,
I mean, it doesn't matter.
Like 12.
Well, he never had that low before.
All right.
So yeah. But Miami bulked up on the offensive line. They've gotten better everywhere. The skill positions, Ryan Fitzpatrick is a good quarterback for fantasy. Jordan Howard is locked in to the short yardage, early down thumper role. It's going to be very difficult to find a competent running back with a secured role anytime after the 5th round, nonetheless the 9th round. I'm not saying that, again, Jordan Howard is this sleeper that's going to win your league, but Jordan Howard's a player that I've been adding in almost every league, because if, let's just say you go one running back early and then really load up on the pass catchers, that is an ideal RB2. Jordan Howard for me is being forgotten about. He probably should be like a late 5th round pick, but in the 9th round, man, I think he's going to end up finishing as a top 24 running back this season.
Oh, that's fair. I'm not sure that Miami has traditionally produced really, really great scores from the running back position.
Jordan Howard's been good, though. I mean, he's been everywhere he's gone. He's been perfectly good. He's never been a bad player. He's never been an exceptional player. But I mean, it wasn't too long ago we were taking Jordan Howard on the 1-2 turn, and he was when he was in Chicago, and he was in a much worse situation. I mean, he's not old. He's 25 years old. I mean, he's
young player. He will get the goal line work if that Miami. Here's the extra positive that I think a lot of people aren't noticing on Howard. With Tua there, it's almost like that little bonus you get from having like kind of a running quarterback potentially that distracts from the running back position a little bit, like the way that Mark Ingram had all that success. I mean, listen, this isn't the Colts. This is the Ravens and the scoring of the Ravens, but you could get a little bit more success from a running back when it's a running quarterback. Actually, Alfred Morris back with Robert RG3 is the good example, because Alfred Morris is basically Jordan Howard.
Yeah, that's a good player comp. Yeah, and you could argue that Jordan Howard might be better, but yeah, it's a great player comp.
Yes, similar. All right, I'm gonna throw it on. I like the Jordan Howard pick because you're getting a starting running back from a team, a starter that late. Like, he's the starter. I mean,
yeah, and this is it's a misprice. Nobody wants him. There's a lot of stink on Jordan Howard, and I highly recommend jumping up around and just adding him, because like you said, I think the reason I wanted to tie to what you said was this could be a year that we see all players, not just running backs, need to be out of your lineup for 2 and 3 weeks. You're going to want a lot of these running backs that you don't have to fight on the waiver wire for.
And get, all I can say, and I'm going to beg everybody, get premium hand. If you have Alvin Kamara on your team and you don't have Latavius Murray on your team, you're fucked. Like, don't do that. Make sure you have your premium. Make sure you have your premium handcuff with your elite starter. There's no Dalvin Cook without Alexander Madison. There's no Zeke without Pollard. Like, you just should not do that. This is the year where you pay extra premiums for the handcuff. Now, I have a sleeper, and by our definition of sleeper says, I think this fits really well. And this is my boy, Darius Geis, a.k.a. The Juice. And here's the deal. Geis has looked electric every time he's carried the ball for Washington. There's no denying it. When he's gotten the opportunity. Now, he gets hurt all the time. I get it. Is he a high injury risk? Hell yes. But he's backed up by Adrian Peterson. Adrian Peterson could get cut from that team. He's old. He doesn't do that much. Geis is going 33rd off the board. He will be the starter for Washington. And if he's healthy, I believe he can deliver. And Washington, a team that loves to run the football, should be improved. Second year with the quarterback, the rookie, the young quarterback, Dwayne Haskins at the helm.
By the way, just to clarify, you said 33rd. He's RB 33. He's going in around the late 6th, early 7th round.
RB 33. I'm not
right.
Because there's so many league types to say, it's 10 league, 12. He's the 33rd RB off the board right now.
Yeah, I think that was, I'm saying, versus just, again, that I think that's an important
ADP. Yeah, so I meant 33rd off the board. And, for that kind of ADP, you're getting him very late. He's a bench piece that could elevate to. I'm comfortable with him as a starter. My biggest concern with Geis, and you tell me what your concerns might be. My biggest concern, if he gets hurt, he doesn't really have a premium backup.
A lot of people like the rookie Antonio Gibson as a late round cuff. Antonio Gibson. I mean, for those of you who haven't been doing the offseason grind with the rookies, Antonio Gibson, the Washington drafted him with like the very first or second pick of the third round, so he's essentially a late second rounder. He was Tony Pollard's backup in college, Antonio Gibson, and he looked electric every time he touched the ball. I mean, he only
did not touch it. He did not touch it a lot, right?
Right. He had 33 career carries, but each one of them he averaged over 11 yards per carry. So it was one of those things.
Do you think he's the full blast premium handcuff? Because
Antonio Gibson represents the definition of a boom bust player. He's going to be one of those players where it's either going to take the roof off or it's just going to take some time for him to develop. They're going to manufacture. They targeted Antonio Gibson, the Washington Redskins did, and they're going to find ways to get him the ball. I mean, he can catch the football too, so they're going to line him up in the slot. He'll be on the field with guys. Now, again, we got to see how pro ready he is. He's one of those high upside, and you can get him in the last pick of your draft. So would you call you said a high priority or high yield handcuff?
Yeah, I don't see that.
I would call him more of a high upside handcuff. And again, the price is right. If you're in a 16-round draft, you could take him after your kicker in defense.
That's right. I was going to say he reminds me a little bit more of a Chris Thompson.
He's bigger than that. He's also like 6'2", 230.
I just mean the role he plays. He's kind of like a wide receiver. He's going to play some running role. So that's where I get the Chris Thompson. He's just more of a converted player, not necessarily a natural running back.
Yeah, I would say more actually where he's more of a Cordell Patterson.
Okay, that's a fair one too.
Cordell was big.
Trick player. Okay. Do you have any other running backs you want to talk about? Or we want to move on to another position group? I mean, do you want to hammer a few of these, or we just go on?
I mean, we can go as much as you want. I mean, so you want to we'll move on to another position group, and then at the end we can just kind of fill in the blank where anyone that we missed.
All right, there we go. So a couple of high target sleepers there. Let's move on to the wide receiver position. The wide receiver group. Sleepers will always emerge late that really come out of nowhere to be super, super useful for your team. This year, I think the depth at wide receiver is some of the deepest we've ever seen in the NFL, and a lot of it's because of the way that the NFL has just gone to more of a passing-based format to where WR2s and 3s can really produce fantasy goodness. And, of course,
do you want to just circle back for a second when we're talking about running backs? You and I discussed this player who is certainly not sexy by any fantasy terms, but you and I are both out on David Johnson as like a top 4-round pick this year, right? Like we don't like David Johnson. We think he's toast. Correct?
Not a fan.
All right. Yep. So by definition of a sleeper, shouldn't we be interested in Duke Johnson as 10th round ADP? I mean, like. Who's going to run the football there?
They will find someone else. The fantasy football gods have decided that Duke Johnson will never get an opportunity. Do not believe in him. He will never get the opportunity. This has been decreed by the fantasy football gods, and there's nothing we can do. It is destined. It is written into the annals of time in memoriam.
Yeah,
that's right.
Again, he's an 11th. He's an 11th round pick. I mean, you could do a lot worse. That's my point.
No, enough. Had enough of Was there not enough pain last year? The guy gets fucking hyped up. Oh, second round pick, and then
but that's what I'm saying. You were paying a 3rd round pick for him, or second round pick. He's an 11th round.
Yeah, no, of course, you could take him in the 11th round. Yes. Of
course. Your people are going to take your advice literally.
I just want to go off on this whole thing. Duke Johnson is like Kenyon Drake, except Kenyon Drake then got the opportunity and he did what we thought he could do. Duke Johnson's this guy that for the last 7 or 6 years, for every year of his career, he's really good. If he just got an opportunity. He's on a shitty team. They never give him the football. Now he goes to a new team. He's going to get the chance. Nope.
Kenyon Drake got his chance, though.
He eventually did, and look, it worked out. So we kept going back to the Kenyon Drake well, but I've been back to the Duke well one too many times. Enough.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
11th round though, like I said. So
No, that's
anyway,
fine.
go.
Right.
So
Totally fine.
wide receivers. So one of my favorite sleepers this year, and again, it's I think one of the best fantasy football strategies is to look at the sophomore wide receivers who disappointed. I think that's a tried and true strategy, and it's just again a bunch of them who we didn't think were going to emerge did, and a bunch who we thought were going to emerge did not. But there's a couple of them where I'm going to give an incomplete grade, either through injury or just through opportunity. And I went back to my evaluations last year, and two players really stuck out that just didn't get the fair chance for a grade, and that's Paris Campbell and Nikhil Harry. I think both of those players are the premium sophomore players that we should be interested in that can finish as a top 15, top 20 wide receiver that are both going in the 9th round or later. First of all, do you agree that those are the two guys that you're most interested in of the disappointing sophomores?
Yeah, I mean, I love Nikhil Harry this year to potentially emerge. Although I want to talk about him more in depth with the Cam Newton signing and if that's good or bad for him, I'm not sure. And yeah, Paris Campbell, listen, there's an upgraded quarterback that just happened over there. They really weren't able to deliver the football. He was injured most of the year last year.
Yeah, I mean, he only got 25 targets last year. I mean, he could not get on the field. This guy ran a sub 4.4. I mean, and he's not 170 pounds. Like, usually the 4.3 guys are like 168, and you hate those players. And I understand why. Paris Campbell is like 188. He's like Antonio Brown size, 190, and he's 6'1". I mean, he's a big player who ran like a 4.39 at the combine. I'm excited to see him get maybe the Keenan Allen treatment from Phillip Rivers. I mean, they are fully invested in Paris Campbell. The rookie wide receiver that they drafted, Michael Pittman, he profiles more as a big red zone, catch radius type player. And we know what T.Y. Hilton is. He's not a target hog. He's a deep player. He can go long. He can catch something over the middle of the field. Paris Campbell, I'd be concerned if they had premium tight ends. They have Jack Doyle, who's more of a workman-like. And as far as the running back position, we haven't seen Marlon Mack become a pass catcher. They drafted Jonathan Taylor, who profiles more as an Adrian Peterson type. And Nyheim Hines, by all accounts, is going to go back to playing special teams until he's needed in desperation times. So I really like... If just as excited as most people were about Deebo Samuel this year, that's kind of where my excitement level is with Paris Campbell. I think he's going to get carries. He's going to, you might see him carry the ball twice a game with end arounds and things like that.
In the postseason evaluation before, after the draft last year, Paris Campbell was strongly in conversation for the most talented wide receiver taken. Nikhil Harry was up there. Paris Campbell was up there. So these are two guys that coming out of college, we thought were going to be spectacular. Didn't do anything last year.
Harry better be good, and they're going to make sure that they give him opportunity because the Patriots took him in the first round. He was the first wide receiver off the board. They took him ahead of DK Metcalf. They took him ahead of Terry McLaurin. They took him ahead of A.J. Brown. They better find out if he's good or not.
A little scary. Now, the beautiful thing about Paris Campbell is you can get him way in the end of the draft. His ADP is WR 63. Right now.
Yeah, I think he's going here. I'm looking at
I don't know what round that is. 191 overall. Pick 191. So that's what? 14th round? 15th, 16th round.
Let's see. Harry right now is going in the 14th. And Paris Campbell, I think it's similar. I'm looking to see where he went, like I said, anecdotally in this one draft I just completed, but yeah, I couldn't imagine it's that far different from there.
No, it's right there. I'm on the ADP best ball 10s, and he's going in, pick 191 overall. That's about the 16th round. Not that far. A couple picks after Nikhil Harry, which is interesting because I like Nikhil Harry a lot more. I think Nikhil Harry's WR1-ish kind of role is pretty secure.
Yes.
Or more secure than Paris, who has to contend with T.Y. Hilton and some other guys on that team, young draft picks. I love the wide receiver position because you can get so much value late. This is the issue I have. This is why I think running back is going so early. Look, how about Burchard Perryman?
Yeah, no, that's he was an early season favorite sleeper of mine. I mean, Burchard Perryman. I mean, remember, another size speed freak who just just was too banged up in Baltimore. He came on a little bit when he was signed with Cleveland, and then obviously we saw the full capability of his skill set at the last handful of games when Godwin and Evans were out in Tampa last year. I love Burchard Perryman. I mean, he was a high first round pick. Pedigree guy. Sometimes guys just take time to develop. Yeah, I mean, I'm absolutely interested in him where he's going super late as well. I think that's a really good sleeper right there, Geek.
There we go. I got one. I got a good one. Now, some other wide receivers I'd like you to weigh in on because I kind of see a lot of sleepers, deep sleepers this season. But there's one guy. I don't know if it's controversial. I don't know. I don't want to say controversial. He's going outside of the top 36, just outside. And that's Brandon Cooks. He was brought into Houston, I guess, to replace DeAndre Hopkins, I guess. Right? You've got an injury-prone Will Fuller. Now, here's the deal with Will Fuller. It's a double-edged sword with him because either he hurts his hammy, or if he's stretching it out, he goes to the gym, that's where you get the corona, then you're out for 4 weeks. You like my logic?
I do. I mean, Will...
All these other reasons. Like, this year he's finally healthy, but he gets the corona.
Yeah, I mean, it would be a great irony of his career, right? I mean, we all know Will Fuller. Let's think back to week 5 last year against Atlanta. Will Fuller had over 200 yards and 3 touchdowns. He had 55 fantasy points in your PPR league. I mean, that is league tilting. That means like, hey, if you were like in 7th place and not only did you win your head-to-head matchup, you shot up in points to the point where you're now like in 4th place. I mean, Will Fuller has so much upside and he's being priced like he's just some sort of afterthought. I understand he's going right now in the 7th round. He makes for the ideal wide receiver 3, the way I like to play fantasy football. Now, I know a lot of people, rightfully so, like to have a safe wide receiver 3, a player that can get you 5 catches for 60 yards and get you 11 points. That is absolutely not the way that we recommend playing fantasy football. We want a player that's extremely volatile and has weak tilting fantasy football upside in your wide receiver 3. And there's no better player than Will Fuller. We understand the over-under on games is probably 8.5 to 9.5 games, but you're paying a 7th rounder. We used to have to pay a late 4th, early 5th. It was a little more risky. I mean, is there a reason that you're not taking Will Fuller in all your drafts this year?
He's on all my teams. He's already on them. Now, but I'm nervous about injuries and I want consistent, but he's going so late that what the way my drafts have worked out so far this year, I'll just tell you, they've all worked out this way because I've been very running back heavy early and a little bit quarterback heavy early in some of these 2 QB leagues. I'm usually kind of getting late to come around to the wide receiver position because what ends up happening is I just like a lot of these wide receivers that you can get 24th and beyond. So yeah, Will Fuller is that like stud guy. Basically, on a few of my teams, he's the first wide receiver I've taken, and he's that stud guy that I can get a little bit late, but I think he's got WR1 potential if he stays healthy. DeAndre Hopkins is gone. New situation. And again, Brandon Cooks, never been a volume guy. That being said, I try to get Brandon Cooks also if I can, just in case one guy goes down, the other guy becomes WR1 for Deshaun Watson, and that's a big deal.
Yeah, I mean, everybody thinks Deshaun Watson's a top 5 real life NFL quarterback. So people are going to start having to fall in love with one of the receivers. I mean, pick your guy. I mean, I hear people, often saying, "Oh, Brandon Cooks is a concussion risk." Yeah, that's why he's available in the 10th round. Will Fuller, he's an injury risk. Yeah, that's why he's available in the 7th round. And I know you're not a big fan of this player, but there's somebody's going to need to catch work the middle of the field, and he actually wasn't bad last year in Dallas, and that's Randall Cobb, who was signed by by Houston. So I think that he represents a Jamison Crowder like safety, or if you're playing a league with 3 receivers and a flex or 2 flexes. Talk about sleepers since we're in the Houston realm. I think that's somebody that you can get with one of the last 2 picks in your draft. And if it doesn't work out, if he does not getting any targets in week 1, if he's not getting 5 or 7 targets, just cut him. One of these Houston receivers is going to have 1,000 yards, right? Right, Geek?
I love these guys in best ball. And Randall Cobb is another guy he's like on all my best ball teams because he goes so late. He's still there. And I can borderline guarantee you that you will get 2 20-plus fantasy point games this season from Randall Cobb. The problem is there'll be like 14 other games, right? So I don't love having him you said it just right. If I had 2 flex positions, I got to throw him in there. And I'm going to mention a name that he reminds me of here, and a couple of similar guys, actually. But one of your sleepers, actually, is kind of playing a similar role. But he'll get a couple of big games. He'll have 2 20-point games. Just there's going to be some really bad ones in the middle. So I like him for best ball for sure. And for season long, especially if somebody goes down on that team, which is so likely that, I think he's a great pick overall, actually, because I think if either one of the other 2 wide receivers go down and they're both super injury prone, all of a sudden Randall Cobb is like WR1 for Houston. You can just start him without really having to worry about the matchup.
Yeah.
The guy I was going to mention, and he doesn't have the injury risk players around him or the elevation that might come with it, is one of your sleeper calls, which is Cole Beasley. Tell me why he is a sleeper.
Yeah, I mean, Cole Beasley, just look down the game log from last year, and he ended up being Josh Allen's Julian Edelman. I mean, anytime that he needed a bailout play, he had no trouble finding Cole Beasley. Now, something Cole Beasley has done really well in his career is just get open in the media and been a reliable target. Cole Beasley's going at as wide receiver 78, meaning in your 16-team draft, he's not even getting drafted. And if you've loaded up on running backs and then you attacked a premium quarterback and then, stacked a couple tight ends and you're really only confident in 1 or 2 of your wide receivers, and you need to get a couple guys at the end, you're shooting for upside with a Paris Campbell or Nikhil Harry, but you just want one player that that in any given week you could stick him in there. Cole Beasley, I don't care that they added Stephon Diggs. There's no way. Josh Allen found a favorite target when things go bad, and his name is Cole Beasley. So he's a player that I'm interested in, even in the shallow bench 16-team leagues, if I fall into the running back frenzy.
16-team leagues, to be clear. This is not a guy.
16-round draft, not 16-team leagues.
Yeah, because I was like, well, that's a big league.
I'm just saying he's draftable even in a normal 12-team league with 16 rounds.
Yes.
Should you get into wide receiver trouble, because it's easy just to take all these upside guys and then all of a sudden none of them pan out by week 2. Cole Beasley might be your answer to stabilize a wide receiver core.
Yeah, I don't think he's an exciting player.
No,
but
he is not.
He's one of these guys that can get you some catches. Now I'm going to give you a name here.
We switching positions, or we staying
certainly going higher up than Cole Beasley. But he is outside the top 36. But a guy who I think will finish potentially as a WR2 in PPR leagues, assuming he stays healthy. And I want your opinion on him, but that's my boy Emmanuel Sanders.
Yeah, he's been
moved to the Saints. They're dying for a WR2. Dying. Finally have somebody.
I've heard some people with really smart football minds just be totally off Emmanuel Sanders, and I don't understand that at all. I know he's 33 years old, but this guy could still play football. I mean, he got open on that last play of the Super Bowl. It was Jimmy Garoppolo that overthrew him. I mean, yes, he does get dinged up more than the average wide receiver, but he is tough as nails. He can make tough catches, and I mean, Drew Brees is one of the most accurate quarterbacks in NFL history. I love this call, Geek. I think Emmanuel Sanders in redraft leagues is going to be a very valuable commodity. I think there's upside and there's floor with him, and I think that's a great call. And anytime I hear someone saying that they're not in Emmanuel Sanders, that they just funnel most of the volume to Alvin Kamara and Michael Thomas, I think it's the same faulted logic that when you talk about how the Eagles always have a committee. It's just that the Saints have never had a reliable number 2 receiver. I think that this could severely impact Michael Thomas. Not as he's still going to be the wide receiver 1, but instead of getting like 14 targets in a game, it could be 9 some games, because it could be the Emmanuel Sanders game. So I'm just saying that whereas Michael,
you know who else I think it's going to hurt possibly more? That's Cook, the tight end, Jared Cook. There are games where the defense, you'd watch last season, the defense would just sell out to stop Michael Thomas. And those were the games where Cook would come through and have these big games. And again, a lot of that reason was they just didn't have anyone else to throw to. There was no one. They would throw to a random tight end. They'd find a player off the bench that you never heard of, like Tommy Lee Jones, or some crazy name that you're like, who the fuck is this guy? And how do I know? Because they played a lot of showdowns, DFS, and you had to know about the Tommy Lee Joneses and the Traquan, the Chef Smiths of the world. But speaking of Cook, let's move on to the tight end position. I know you love the tight ends, and there are a lot of sleepers this year. We broke down the tight end position at full length, Bolt Calls pod, right? But let's talk about tight end real quick. Let's talk about names outside of the top 12. Don't cheat. That could emerge. I'm going to say it's a top 6, because you give me number 13, say he's a TE1. That's not a fucking sleeper. That's fucking cheating. So I want guys who we can get outside of the top 12 that have at least a shot of being in the top half or top 6 tight end scoring for this season.
Yeah, I mean, you said it perfectly, because everyone's like, "Oh, I have a low end tight end 1. I'm going to be fine." Like having tight end 8, the guy who finishes around tight end 8, it's the same thing as having tight end 16. Like there's usually not much differentiation. The key to gaining an edge in season long fantasy football is identifying that player who's being picked outside of the top 15 players at that position, usually in the 10th round or later, who could finish as a top 5 at the position. So 2 years ago, it was George Kittle. He was routinely going in the 9th through 12th round, and he obviously finished as a top 2 or 3 option. Last year we found Mark Andrews.
And D. Waller.
Waller wasn't even getting drafted. I can't even call him a sleeper. He was like a waiver wire pickup guy.
Yeah, unfair. What to say we found? Yes, you made the call on Mark Andrews, top 5 guy, going like 15th overall at the tight end position. It came true.
Yeah, I mean, I still think he's undervalued this year. He's going like in the 5th round. I think he should be going right there with the Kittles and and that group of the world. But
no Hayden Hurst on that team. But
yeah. So anyway, the player this year, and you and I have talked about him. There's a couple of them, but we'll start with our number 1 sleeper, and he's going to be a very popular sleeper, and that's Mike Gesicki.
We're so in agreement on this guy.
Yeah, it's Mike Gesicki. And look back to last year, the last month and a half of the season, he averaged over 15.5 fantasy points. He saw the target volume. Now, I know that there's players that were injured that are coming back, and Mike Gesicki's in that 3rd year where he could be, where the tight ends typically break out. He's got to be one of the most popular sleepers this year. I mean, anything to add on him?
Yeah, I mean, people forgot what he did towards the end of last season. Again, new quarterback. Potentially, not definitely, but potentially new quarterback on Miami. And, they're going to be throwing just as much as before. He broke out already. I just think people didn't pay that close attention because they didn't realize it was like a 5 or 6 game stretch at the end of last year where he was one of the best tight ends. He's probably giving top 3 fantasy scores for most of those weeks. And it was the end. All of the numbers make sense. He was the sophomore season coming to the end. He's coming around. He should improve this year, or at least do somewhat close to what he was doing You're getting him outside of the top 12. There's nothing wrong with this pick.
I recommend you going back to you, the listener, going back to our tight end podcast, and we talk about a lot of different tight ends in depth here. But I'll dip from that pool again, and another tight end that I think is just a home run. You know where I'm going with this is John.
Wait, let me say. Even I'm not going to say his name, but I'm going to say before you say his name, this guy is currently going 17th TE17 overall as of today right now, according to my ADP chart. This is someone who I actually believe his ADP will climb significantly between now and actual season-long redrafts to where, and you can, timestamp this. We're sitting here in June 29th. By August, this is a guy who I believe will be going in the top 12. So this is a guy who is going to move up the draft board. Say the name.
Yeah, Jonnu Smith of the Tennessee Titans. I mean, Delaney Walker's not back. Jonnu Smith came on late last year. He's one of these athletic guys with a nose for the football. Ryan Tannehill, I know that Tennessee is not one of the most pass-heavy teams, but they're going to have to pass more than they did, especially with the emergence of A.J. Brown. I think now that they know who their primary pass catchers are, they're no longer trying to force a ball to a player like a Tajay Sharp, who's no longer with the team, or Corey Davis now is just another receiver on the outside for them. They know A.J. Brown's the primary target, and they know when they need some tough short yards, they're going to go to Jonnu Smith. Derrick Henry's not a big pass catcher, so it's not like he's going to catch 50 footballs. He's going to catch 20, 25. I think that Jonnu Smith is the type of player that if you're playing the weight on tight end game, you're going to be very happy that you got him. I'm predicting a season where Jonnu Smith has like 68 catches for like 750 yards and like 9 touchdowns.
I'm going to tell you some guys he's going well after that I would take him ahead of comfortably without even thinking twice. Noah Fant.
Yeah, I have a good hot take on Noah Fant for you later.
You love that tight end position. Dallas Goedert. T.J. Hawkinson. Hayden Hurst. What the fuck has he done in his career to be a top 9 or 10?
I mean, Hayden Hurst is he just walked into a really good situation, so it's hard to. Sometimes it all lines up right. Hayden Hurst, is in Atlanta.
Bargain. You got to take a fucking 9th overall. So 9th tight end overall. So give me a guy who's done it before. I've seen a picture of Hayden Hurst. The dude's athleticism is ridiculous. He's ripped. He looks like a freaking bodybuilder. He looks like DK Met. These guys, man. He looks like DK Metcalf. Like, they got to get these guys together. Like, I think I saw a video of Hayden Hurst like bench pressing 225 pounds with one arm, like balancing it.
Absolutely.
Insanity. But he's a strong guy. But I mean, come on. Catch 30 passes in your career before I'm ready to take in.
You had mentioned Noah Fant a minute ago. I don't understand the Noah Fant thing at all. I mean, he profited from one big, huge play that was a broken play. Last year, they drafted Jerry Jeudy. They still have Courtland Sutton, and they even drafted one of the better tight end prospects in Albert O. When we get into the bold prediction section of our later on this summer, I think Albert O is going to have more touchdowns than Noah Fant. I'm not saying yards or catches, just more touchdowns. So I'm totally scratching Noah Fant off my list.
He was never on my list. These are not the type of player. I don't have
That's
Noah
what I'm saying.
And TJ Hawkinson's on my team. Like, no, those are not guys I draft. That's not how I play fantasy football. I don't take a guy on hopes and prayers at the tight end position. Show me 3 games of goodness like Tyler Higbee, like Mike Gesicki did. And I'm gonna throw one more name out. Tight end is really easy for sleepers. There's so many sleepers. I'm almost cheating, but I mean, how about Chris Herndon if he comes back healthy?
Why is that cheating?
Because, it's like so obvious. I don't know. I just feel like it's obvious.
I think there's risk with Chris. I mean, yeah, he's got the upside, but there's risk. I mean, in year 1, he flashed a little. Year 2, after the suspension, he couldn't get on the field. He had injury, had doghouse problems. I mean, this is year 3 now. I mean, I don't know. I mean, they drafted Denzel Mims. They have Burchard Perryman, Jamison Crowder. They paid to dominate the middle of the field. If he comes through, he's a sleeper because I think he's got a lot of obstacles to climb over before he's fantasy relevant.
All right, that's fair. Maybe as a Jets fan, I just know too much about the team, and I think it's so obvious that the team has talked about him as somebody they want to get the football to, but he hasn't been able to stay healthy. So we'll see if he can.
There's one more tight end sleeper who I think you need to come away with in your draft, and people love Tyler Higbee. That he went on an historic run the last 5 weeks of fantasy football that's never been done before by any tight end. I think it was 5 games with 100 yards or more. It's never been done 5 games in a row by a tight end. But before that happened, the player that the team that Sean McVay drafted in the second round 3 years ago, that was Gerald Everett. And he was on a little breakout run of his own before he got hurt. Now he's back and people are treating him like he's some sort of backup. When I believe there is an equal chance, a 50-50 chance that he could be the player that has a better fantasy season than Higbee.
I don't agree.
All right, but I'm saying is that he's going as tight end 28 right now. That if you miss out on that elite tier and you're stacking 2 guys, 3 guys that you want with a shot, Smith would be my number 1. I mean, obviously Gesicki's a little more expensive. He's still like tight end 13, but I mean, if you just miss totally and you're just playing like the punt game, Gerald Everett, to me, I think he is grossly mispriced by the fantasy market so far.
The misprice is fair. And also Everett becomes what Tyler Higbee was if Higbee gets the Rona, if he gets hurt. So it's a very, very premium secondary option. I think he's going TE 28, so last pick, no big deal. And I've seen him. He's a guy I like on best ball leagues as well. I really like these types in best ball leagues. All right, let's move on to the quarterback position. Now, we have to now talk about quarterback and quarterback sleepers because the popularity of the Superflex format has brought the quarterback position into prominence. We have to give a shit now. Before, I would always be the last guy in my league. My goal was always to be the last guy to take a quarterback. Sometimes I would wait uncomfortably long because I just wanted to have 2 bench spots filled before I wasted a pick on what is a very replaceable position in single QB leagues. But now everything has changed.
So how are you treating the quarterback position? I mean, just start with some basic stuff. Like, are you going in 1 QB leagues in your normal, 1 leagues? Are you attacking QB early, or are you just, again, going to go back to like, hey, I'm just going to take Ben Roethlisberger in the 13th round?
On a 1 QB league, the only player that I'm really interested in taking in early rounds and taking a shot on is Lamar Jackson.
You have to spend a 2nd round pick on him.
Well, I'm not getting him because I don't spend 2nd round picks on quarterbacks. But if I'm in a league where Lamar Jackson starts falling, and all of a sudden it's the 3rd round, okay? And I'm even at the top of the 3rd round, and I'm looking at some names that I'm just not that excited by. It's good, Amari Cooper's available. He's there. Tight ends are on the board. My elite tier of running backs are gone. You're looking at some sort of secondary. Yeah, I would take Lamar Jackson there because Lamar Jackson is legitimately worth 8 to 9 fantasy points above the next best quarterback. So he is a difference maker in that sense.
So I guess the real question is that, most, and I'm proud to say this, that most of the DFS Army members are now getting into the Superflex world. I think that's the more exciting way to play. I mean, even that. So if you have an early pick, I know you've had some internal debate. You've drafted a couple different ways. If you have a top 3 pick, are you taking one of the elite quarterbacks in Superflex leagues, or are you still going to go with Barkley or McCaffrey? Like, how do you like to build your teams in Superflex?
I tend to go with Barkley or McCaffrey or Barkley, although I have made an opposite decision in a dynasty league where I went with Mahomes over the running backs because it was a dynasty and just the longevity of the quarterback position seemed to me to be the way to go, especially in a team where I went with a lot of youth. So I didn't feel like a win now team where I think when you're grabbing running backs like McCaffrey or even Barkley, McCaffrey's I don't know if they're different in age, but McCaffrey has a few more years on him. But when you're grabbing those guys, you need to be winning now, because we know the window for elite production from running backs is much, much lower than it is for the quarterback position. You need to win now. So
Yeah. So
But
sleepers.
in redraft, I don't give a fuck if it's 2 QB, 1 Q, whatever. I'm always taking those 2 elite running backs before a quarterback. But when those 2 are off the board and we have a severe drop-off to RB3 and RB4, and I believe the drop-off is severe, then I'm down with Mahomes, I'm down with Lamar, I'm down with Dak, I'm down with whatever.
Yeah. And
so 3 really, but yeah.
Totally. And, that's where I think sleepers for quarterbacks is important. And there are, believe it or not, we think we know all our quarterbacks. We know which ones are good. We know which ones have job security, but there are some quarterbacks here that are getting drafted really late that I think can finish as low end QB1s. And, I just want you to think back to what we thought about Jared Goff after his rookie year and how we wanted no part of him. And it was just a bad situation. And then by year 2, the system changed. The players around him did not. The coaching changed. And all of a sudden, Jared Goff was a QB1. I think that there's a player this year that has a chance to experience that growth, that upside for fantasy. And that's Dwayne Haskins. Now,
wow.
I know
I was not expecting that. Not expecting that. So I can't wait to hear this.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, nobody wants anything to do with Dwayne Haskins. He's literally the last starting quarterback taken in Superflex leagues. I mean, like the Nick Foles goes before him, and he may not even start. Derek Carr goes before him. We all know that he has some job security issues. So Dwayne Haskins, admittedly, when he went out there for his first couple games, looked like a deer in headlights. He did not look like he was ready to play NFL football. The coach, they invested, a mid-first round pick at him. They're going to see if they're going to do everything they can to see if it works. All the offseason reports have been good, but let's go back to the last few games of last season. He actually looked good. His efficiency numbers were good. His footwork looked a little better. He got a little bit more protection. When he was one of the most rushed quarterbacks. He had the least amount of time to release the ball of all 32 starters. They've done a little bit to help him out there, and they've added what I think are really good pass catching prospects. There is no doubt in my mind that Dwayne Haskins was not ready last year, but he showed enough at the end of last year, and I think they're working with him enough that I think he has upside. Ron Rivera has always gotten the new coach over at Washington has been able to bring in a coaching staff that gives competent quarterback play. And I'm not saying that Dwayne Haskins is going to be a top 5 quarterback, but with all the weaponry he has, the draft pedigree, and frankly, the talent he has, he threw 50 touchdowns his last year in college. I think that you could be looking at Dwayne Haskins as finishes like QB 15 on the year. And in Superflex draft, if he's the last quarterback off the board, I think you're going to be very happy. If you go Pat Mahomes early, you want to ignore the position for the rest of your Superflex draft. I think that makes for an ideal target.
I like the call. We already like Scary Terry. So he's got to be catching these passes from somebody, right?
Yeah, and Terry, and remember, it's Catch TMC. Terry McLaurin, man, was he was his college teammate. He was Dwayne Haskins' college teammate. I mean, there's no chemistry off season. They already have it for a couple of years. And then Kelvin Harmon's going to enter his second year. I know that, I like the prospect, Gandy Golden, but they also have Steve Sims, who I will be adding to my sleeper list. I've been on him all this offseason as a great underneath target. We know Darius Geis can take a short little swing pass the whole way. I mean, you're going to see games where Dwayne Haskins totally leans on Darius Geis. I think you're going to see 10 catch games from Darius Geis this season. It's just
you're making an argument for one of my sleepers there.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm in on Washington, especially at the price. All the players are just so depressed, their ADP, and again, in your Superflex leagues, I think you're going to, just think about, for you, the listeners, no way, Dwayne Haskins, I'm totally out. Just think about what your perception was about Jared Goff after his rookie year. One
thing I'm going to add to that, because we're DFS players as well, is to keep in mind, we had similar thoughts about Daniel Jones last year. Daniel Jones led people to $1 million wins in the Millie Maker. So that when you get that feeling of, I don't like that guy, right? Sometimes you have to sit back and think, hey, why do I feel that way? Is that some perception? Am I logically thinking this through? And what are the probabilities of these various outcomes? So Dwayne Haskins is a guy we're going to have to keep in mind for DFS purposes, because if Terry McLaurin is having massive weeks, you know, he's gonna put up big numbers. Haskins going to put up big numbers throwing to him for very, very cheap salary.
Now, Geek, I know in DFS that usually you don't stack the quarterback and the running back, but is it total? Is it? And again, I don't proclaim to be an expert in this. That's why I defer to you here. Is it possible to do a contrarian play and stack like a Dwayne Haskins with a pass catching running back like Geis?
Yes, as long as the running back is a pass catcher, it becomes very viable. Even sometimes when they're not a super pass catcher, like there were a couple of games where Lamar Jackson threw for 2 touchdowns to Mark Ingram. And you're like, hey, what the fuck was that? He doesn't usually throw to him a lot and whatever, but that worked out. Normally those two guys are inversely related, but it's okay. But a Christian McCaffrey with his quarterback, a Le'Veon Bell with his quarterback, these pass-catching running backs. Now, I wouldn't pair Dalvin Cook with
Kirk Cousins, right? That makes sense.
Not so much because salary plays a factor. Get me talk about DFS. This is fucking exciting. So salary plays a factor, right? When you have a stud-priced running back, for him to be producing the way we need to, his team needs to really be dominating with a win. He needs to be doing all the work. So in that situation, I don't really want to pair him with his quarterback, because I not only need him to catch that 1 touchdown from Kirk Cousins, I really need him to put up 100 yards and run a second one in to have produced enough to pay off his salary. So there's a salary factor, but with Geis, he's always cheap. And with Dwayne Haskins, he's always going to be one of the cheapest.
Yeah, one of the min salary guys, right?
Yeah, like this min salary combo. I don't need 35 points out of either. I'll take it, but I don't need it.
Let's remember though, and that's interesting, and I'm glad that you underlined that point. But Dwayne Haskins, there was a lot of talk that he was going to be a top 10 pick. He slipped to like pick 15. Like Dwayne Haskins is a good, clean prospect. I really like him. He just got off to a rough start, and I think that he is the there's not really gonna be many sleepers as how we define them at the quarterback position, man. So
well, what about let me throw a name at you, and he's a local boy down in Jacksonville, Jacksonville, the land of the Florida man. Look it up. Now, Gardner Minshew, one of the great little statistics that you'd have relayed to me about him, because I don't give a fuck about Jacksonville or their players, like who's paying attention, right? But you relayed this to me. No, I loved Gardner Minshew last year for his personality, for real. Love his whole thing that he's got going on. But you relayed this to me. He was one of the runningest quarterbacks in the league last season, very, very quietly. Tell me about his legs, and tell me about his potential to get us scoring, which is all I care about, with his legs.
Yeah, I mean, he's not a running quarterback in the sense of like what Lamar Jackson is, but he's more about, remember how Andrew Luck or how Aaron Rodgers, he's going to get you 300. If he starts 16 games, he's going to get 380 yards on the ground. I mean, that is significant. He's not going to be a Tom Brady or Drew Brees and give you a complete zero. Gardner Minshew, I mean, there's a lot of skepticism about him. I mean, he was a 6th-round rookie who he looked good to me. I mean, he just, if you watch the games, and he didn't have much around him. The team has shown full confidence. They didn't bring in a veteran. There was a lot of talk that Jameis Winston, Cam Newton, Andy Dalton, they said, we're going to see what we have in our guy. And if a rookie shows anything, you're happy. I mean, he showed more than a spark with minimal weapons. They added Laviska Shenault, a 2nd-round player who profiles as a middle-of-the-field player, a yards after the catch type of player. They have DJ Shark, who you and I agree there is no way he is not going to be a top 10 receiver this year. Like,
there's a way, but it involves like Gardner Minshew just completely being shit.
Yeah, I mean, he's good. I can't see a situation how DJ Shark's going to get less than 135 targets. It's just, and if he catches 90 passes for 1,100 yards and has 7 touchdowns, he's a wide receiver 1, more or less. You know, I mean, it's anyway. But yeah, I think that's great. I mean, people are taking Tom Brady as the 10th QB off the board when you could easily take Gardner Minshew. I love that as, Dwayne Haskins. Minshew probably has more floor and ceiling than Haskins. So I think that's even a better sleeper pick. I really like that. He's going to scramble. It's going to be fun to own him. And again, you're talking about super flex leagues, because in 1 QB leagues, he either won't get drafted, or, if you only have 5 bench spots, you can't really take on a second quarterback. And if you do, you're probably gonna have to drop them the minute somebody gets hurt anyway. So
now, let me ask you about another quarterback combination that is like almost a sleeper combo. Again, for your 2 QB, these people aren't, if you're doing a single, none of these people need to be drafted in 1 QB leagues. Let's be clear. But what about the combo of the Miami guys? What do you think is going to happen between Tua and Fitzmagic? I love Fitzpatrick when he plays. Like, he's always good when he plays.
Yeah,
but they got Tua over there. What's the story? Can I take them both? Do I have to take both if I want to have 1 wide receiver, 1 quarterback for my 2 QB league?
Yeah, I mean, what you're having to do is if you've waited and you just missed out on quarterback completely because you've stacked the other positions, yeah, that's a smart play. Take them both. We don't know who's going to start. I honestly think it's going to be Tua. I know people are like, oh, Fitzpatrick's going to start. It's always the veteran's going to start. If Tua is healthy, he's going to start. Like, why wait? Don't you want to see what you have? Because give him a full sample. Everyone's like, well, you want him to sit and learn. I think I don't.
That says that. Who are these people?
There are people that say that, and what I'm saying is that I don't know about you. The only way I've ever learned any task or anything in this world is actually by doing it, not by watching someone else do it. And yeah, by watching someone else do it, you can get little tips. But
let me throw an example out there. Something I've been watching for a long time. I watch a lot of shows about like people surviving in either Alaska or some cold ass fucking environment, right? Like some hot place in like a jungle or like Alaska. I watch a lot of show. I watch that shit on a show. And in my mind, I think I could do it. But the reality is I ain't doing it. I could watch that all day. It's not happening. So yeah, no, I totally agree. Although I do think there is benefit to practicing with the team and learning the playbook, but I say throw them in the fire with rookie quarterbacks. I am not a wait and let them learn guy. All right. That's it. We've covered every position group, a bunch of sleepers, more on the way, but this was a fun little exercise, kind of checking out some players that we think will help you late in your draft, help you win some leagues. That's what we're all about. We're all about winning leagues, best ball leagues, dynasty leagues, redraft leagues, 2QB, whatever the fuck you do, we got that shit. We want you to win it. We got you covered with the help.
Yeah, and go check out the DFS Army Draft Kit. This is the second year that we're doing a season-long draft kit. Each year we're gonna keep building and getting bigger and better ideas about it. But if you're a DFS Army member, we have our dynasty rankings there. We have our positional rankings. Myself, the Geek. We've even instituted the help of Flex Shane, who's helped us out with the wide receivers. Who's a wide receiver guru himself.
And Shane will be doing a lot more for the season-long.
He'll be helping out in the Slack chat.
Yeah, we're building up that team, more and more robust, winning players.
Yep. So yeah, go in there. We have our sleepers. We're going to be putting our value plays. We're going to be putting our strategy tips. Just go to the DFS Army website, click on the season long tab, and then there's a button called Draft Kit. And it's very simple. It's almost like Excel chart tabs, but it's very well organized by our DFS spreadsheets master. And he is, and if there's anything there that you have any questions about or rankings or want to argue with us, feel free to tell us why we're right or why we're wrong, most importantly, in the Slack chat in the DFS Army. So
there we go. So to wrap it all up, guys, remember to like and subscribe to this channel if you like these videos. If you like fantasy football content, this is where you have to hit the alert button. It'll let you know when we're going live. And of course, sign up at dfsarmy.com as a VIP or an NFL or whatever you're into sports-wise. VIP covers everything we do, DFS, season-long, everything. Sign up as a VIP. You can use promo code SEZ, SEZ, 20% off. That's dfsarmy.com. Sign up as VIP. Again, like and subscribe if you see us on Spotify, Playlist, Stitcher, Snitcher, Podbean, Apple, iTunes, wherever you are, YouTube.
And with sports coming back, remember our sister site, Sportsbet Army, is up and running. I've seen people coming in, joining that chat. We're actually, Coach John Alicia and myself are going to be doing a podcast this week, just refreshing everybody on the basics of sports wagering too. So the NBA, MLB is set to return. MMA has never gone anywhere. And
let me tell you something. I've swept my bets for MMA, which I share with our Sportsbet Army subscribers, 3 weeks in a row. I'm about to make it 4. I've got 2 max bets coming up for Fight Island.
Oh, you need to tell me about those. I need to make some money.
Posted. You don't fucking check my channel, you don't get the bet. You got to check my channel in Sportsbet Army.
I will do.
And guess what? Those lines have moved 30, 40 points since I bet. I'm not saying I moved the line. I'm not taking that credit. But what I'm saying is I posted the bet, and now the line has moved to where your version of it is not going to be as good as mine. That's on you. Fucking check the channel, bro. That's not right. I'm not taking responsibility for that. That's you.
Sign us off, and we'll hit the theme song.
That'll do it for the Bold Calls Sleepers podcast. We'll be back, as always, next week, breaking down your season-long fantasy drafts, giving you all the knowledge and the bold calls that it takes to win. Good luck, everyone. See you next time.
Got the best coaches in the game, we really ain't playing. We regroup up in the Slack chat where the coaches debrief. We be piecing these puzzles, occupy the chunk of the pie. Ain't no lie when we hit the block, helmets casket is got. You be seeing helmet after helmet, helmet after helmet. First place, second place, fifth place, 8th place, 12th place, 15, 16, 20. So many helmets, you got blurred vision, we got